Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing the MMA Slate preview. And I wanted to wait as long as I could because there were several fights canceled, and there were also fights that we thought were going to be canceled that were not. And I was really waiting to see if there were any fights that were switched because, as you guys know, sometimes, when a fighter gets replaced by somebody else, we see some really good equity built up because they don't really change the DK salaries at all on the players, on the fighters that had already been scheduled. And you're able to get some big equity plays. And you'll see that coming right out of the gate for this card. Really interesting card from a DK perspective. I mean, for me, because I thought about this for a while. I don't want to say back and forth. So when I first built, based on what I thought of these fights, I really felt as though there was one lineup or one way to go that just made so much sense. And it's so much sense that I really did feel, and probably still do feel, that it's going to be a really, really duped lineup. And while I can't give the actual lineup because DK will murder me, when we go through the actual fighters and you guys kind of fiddle around with yourself, you guys fiddle around with your with the lineups, you'll be able to see what I mean. So then I went back, and I'm going to go back again and see if I can't find some way to make some of these lineups more GPP-ish, right? Because if I'm going to play a lineup that everybody's playing, by definition, it's probably not a great lineup. Because even if it does kind of hit, which is really, really difficult to do, right? You'll end up splitting it with a bunch of people, which is just a disaster. It's not a disaster. It's better to win than to lose, but you know what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the fights, and then I'm really going to try to give alternative results because there are a couple of things you could do to make your lineups a little less, I won't say less chalky, but a little more GPP-ish. That's the best way I can describe it. So the first thing we have to address is one just enormous equity play. And where did it go? Hang on a minute. Let me just pause for just a second. Here, sorry. So the elephant in the room is that Alonzo Menafield was supposed to fight William Knight, and it was a 81-8100 fight on DraftKings because it was pick'em. And then William Knight dropped out and was replaced by Fabio Cherant, who, let's just put it this way. Alonzo Menafield is now a 3-1 favorite, depending on where you look. And because of DK policy, they have to keep the salaries the same. So you're getting pick'em odds DK-wise on a 3-1 fighter. So from an equity perspective, fortunately or unfortunately, this is kind of a smash play. Not to mention the fact that he has a lot of knockout upside. Not to mention that Cherant came in kind of not looking so great in the weights. So this is, fortunately or unfortunately, going to be a play that everybody's going to play. I would think. You're getting pick'em odds on a 3-1 fighter, plus upside with respect to knockouts and things. So this is one thing that everybody's going to do. And yeah, you could pivot and try to go against him. The problem is that when I like to do that, I like to do that with a fighter that has kind of good scoring upside, or at least a really good path to victory. And at least from my research, I don't think that Cherant kind of fits that. So for me, I'm just going to probably eat that chalk. Maybe it's because I'm more math oriented. It's kind of difficult to fade the equity of that than some other spots. So that is a difficult thing to fade. With the exception of that, let's go through these inside the distance props, and you're going to see, a real dichotomy between the fights that look good and the fights that might be fishy. So we're going to just this is the MMA, the best fight odds site. So we're going to focus on the over 2.5 round fight prop. So like this one, the Barrio fight, it's 2-1 to go over 2.5 rounds. All right, so that's kind of tier one, and that's really not that exciting. Omar Morales, Shane Young, same thing, minus 2-1 to go over 2.5 rounds. Then on the other hand, you have this Olgaskis fight, which is pretty much a favorite. Well, it's pick him to go under 1.5 rounds, and minus 150 to go over 2.5. So this is like a key fight. So you'll see, there's section 1, which is fights like this, and section 2, which are these others, and you'll see there's not much in the middle. So Nurmagomedov, Gooden, this one, it's not a good fight with respect to inside the distance. It's minus 180 to go over 2.5 rounds. Now he's a big favorite, so it's probably a good kind of just play to get the W. But to finish early, it's not a great fight. Menafield, one we talked about it, just to show you, it's a big favorite to go under 2.5 rounds. So we talked about that already. Malarkey, Worthy. This fight is another one. This is probably in the middle, but I would say, this is the one fight that's kind of like in the middle of the two sections. This one is under 2.5 rounds, about a pick 'em. Then you have Jillian Robertson, Miranda Maverick, which is, as most women fights are, this rates to finish, over 2.5 rounds. But we're going to get back to this fight in a minute. Then you have O'Malley Almeida, which is tier 1. I mean, this is a favorite. It's minus 160 to go under 2.5. So this is a fight you want to keep. And then you have Woodley Luque, which is not. This is minus 150 to go over 2.5 rounds. So that's tier 2. And then you have the main event, which is, fortunately or unfortunately, probably a lock to be put in your lineups, because this is kind of a style thing. Because if Ngannou wins, it could be the first round pretty easily. And if Miocic wins, it's going to be because he gets a lot of, he stuffs the early KO, wears him down, and gets a lot of takedown points. So even this over 2.5 is plus 155. So this is a key fight. So you have very distinct tiers here. You have the Ngannou Miocic fight. You have the Menafield spot. You have the Olgaskis Bukakis fight. And those are really your key kind of fights that you want to, make sure you get a decent amount of, right? If not all of. And so you'll see, while we're not going to build that exact lineup that I talked about, where is it? Was my DraftKings? Not here. That was last night's disaster. Where did it go? I thought I had it. I'm sorry, guys. This is all just kind of. Oh, here. So if you put in, for example, some Menafield and Olgaskis over here, then you pick somebody from this fight, from the main, that's like 3 spots that, that already take up your lineups. And it's only a 10-card fight because of all the cancellations. So as you can see, the build is starting to become very straightforward, if that makes any sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the actual fights that, we didn't talk about, or some that we did. And unfortunately, you're going to see where this kind of all leads. So you have this fight, this Azatar Barrio fight, which is a pick'em fight, which rates to really not be too exciting. So it seems as though this is a fight that you really don't want any part of. I really don't have an opinion on either of these guys. But I guess in GPPs, we might have to take a shot. But in the main lineup, I just don't see myself doing this. Morales Young, this could be an interesting GPP fight. So Morales, he's a minus 1. He's an $8,700 fighter. So like I said, you want to kind of get guys like this that are going to KO people. So he is kind of more of like a GPP pivot type play, right? Because this inside the distance prop is pretty fishy. Olgaskis, from everything that I've read, he is the one that's going to be going out to attempt to finish this early. So if in fact this does score the way that Vegas is pricing it to score with respect to inside the distance, it's going to be on the Olgaskis side. The path to victory for Bukakis is, surviving that first round and kind of taking over later, which is fine. Okay, especially because he's going to be only 7,700. But the main deal is if the scores really well, it's going to be because Olagaskis got there. So he's going to be probably core play. Then you have this I keep forgetting. They're all these brothers. I can't pronounce any of them right. But he's a big favorite. He's a 2-1 favorite over Gooden. And even though he's 9,200, I mean, he's kind of probably a solid play. I mean, does he pay off 9,200? It's kind of hard to say. But, the other fight, I forgot to put in the O'Malley fight. Sorry, that was the other one. So you have, this is somebody else's ownership projections. This is my screen, whatever this is. Maybe this could be one of those amazing things where my technology kind of just goes to crap, but the actual picks do really, really well. So Nurmagomedov is probably a pretty safe play, but does it fit within your GPP lineups? I mean, I think you'll see when you go through it how it all fits together. Menifil, we talked about. This fight, Worthy Malarkey, again, it's a pick'em fight that doesn't have the greatest inside the distance prop. So it's not like one guy is particularly more inclined to knock out the other. So as far as your main core, these guys are just not going to be the main part of it. This fight, Jillian Robertson, Miranda Maverick. I mean, again, this is something that I've done a little research on this, and from what I can tell, Jillian Robertson does have a path to victory because Miranda Maverick, apparently, while she's good, she's young and she doesn't do a really good job of defending takedowns. And that's specifically what Jillian Robertson is good at. So Jillian Robertson has this path to victory that she's hopefully going to employ, which I'm sure she will. I think we might have had her against Casey when she got the 3rd round sub. And even if she doesn't sub her, she can get some control time. And at 7,400, that's really all you need. And the thing is that, you're looking for live dogs. And this is definitely somebody you could go to. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So we're going to take this out for a second. So that's something you could go to. Maverick, again, she's just, as most women fighters are, she's not a big KO type of girl. So it's, 8,700, 8,900, whatever she is, it's kind of tough to pay that off. O'Malley Almeida. O'Malley is a big favorite with a big inside the distance prop. It's a really, really strong play. He has good 1st round knockout upside, which is what we need for GPPs. So it's going to be popular, but it's, probably, as they like to say, for good reason. Woodley Luque, my first build, when I thought I was really trying to get some punt underdog, I put Woodley in. The more I research this, it's just everybody seems to think that Woodley throws no volume, and 39 years old, it's just not. It doesn't seem like somebody that has much of a shot. Maybe against some of my GPP lineups where I try to be different, maybe I'll try it. And then I think about Luque versus, say, Magomedov. So Luque is, again, somebody who has really big win odds, yet doesn't have the greatest inside the distance prop. So now I'm not sure if Luque is going to knock anybody out, but maybe. I mean, I consider Luque very similar to, who did I mention, Magomedov. So I think one of those two guys, they're very similar. They're both about 9,100. They both are probably going to win. They don't have the greatest, they're not like locks to finish in the 1st round. Those guys are pretty similar. You could probably go one of each of those guys without probably playing 2 of them. And then this Ngannou Miocic fight, I kind of agree with the public. I mean, in that there's 2 ways this goes. I think either way scores a lot. I mean, I'm the type of person that's going to, not take the big stand. So, I mean, I could do either, right? I could play Ngannou. He's got that great, huge power, 1st round KO upside. And then Miocic, obviously being the better fighter, he could probably knows what he's doing and hopefully can avoid that big shot. And then he can just kind of take over the fight and win like he did last time. And I think you'll see, though, that when you go through the lineup builds, that you can build just a really just sweet lineup with Miocic, where it's a little harder when you even pay that extra 400 with Ngannou, given what I've described. So just I'll throw a couple of little nuggets in. Again, this is not my core. This is just ways to be different. First thing is that, again, like, so if you want to make multiple lineups, if you want to, just be a little whatever, I do think that Morales is a good GPP play over Shane Young. Shane Young, we thought he was going to not even fight at all because of COVID. So he's been kind of out of sorts, probably all week, stressed about whether he's even going to fight. And from what I hear, Young is very, very hittable. It's just kind of stands and just blocks punches with his face. And I think Morales, it's a perfect spot for him to just kind of get there. Again, when you start screwing with the salaries, you're going to see that it's kind of harder to get him in, Morales, and get everything else you want, which is what makes it kind of a cool GPP play. The other thing you could do, like, you could play Morales instead of, say, remember those two safe guys, Luque and Nurmagomedov? You play Morales instead of them, leave like 400 on the table or something like that. And maybe that's a way you can get somewhat different. Other guys that, again, I want to go over, this I do think this Gooden could be an interesting kind of punt KO leverage play. If you even think Nurmagomedov is going to be that popular, but I think Gooden is probably a decent leverage play over what I think is going to be a kind of a chalky Julian Robertson. Julian Robertson is a very, very live underdog for all the reasons that I mentioned. I think everybody's going to play her, or most people are going to play her. A lot of people are going to play her. So you want to pivot off of her and take a shot at a different one of these underdogs. I think the Gooden is fine. I mean, I think it's going to win probably one every 3 times, just like the odds suggest. But the thing is, when he does win, it's probably going to KO the guy, which is definitely what you want to see. Malarkey Worthy, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, if anything, maybe I'll play Worthy as just kind of a pivot, but again, not in that many lineups. And I don't mean to hedge here, but this is just kind of the way I am at with this card. If you want to play Maverick, you're certainly going to get different, because I don't think Maverick's going to get a lot of ownership here because the price is big, 8,700. The knockout thing is not that big. Maybe I'll throw one of her. Again, I think that's might be the idea, is to pivot off of these safer plays like the Luque and Nurmagomedov by either playing Gooden or rostering Gooden, or pivoting off of Nurmagomedov by something similar priced that maybe doesn't have the same degree of safety or upside with respect to somebody like Maverick. I'm not going to play Almeida as a pivot off of to leverage off of O'Malley. I think O'Malley's just going to win. It's the best I can describe that. And yeah, if you want to take a shot with Woodley as a punt, I just think that Gooden is probably a better punt than Woodley, if that makes any sense. I think Gooden has a little more KO upside or win upside than Woodley. I have no authority to say that. It's just kind of a feeling I get that it's possible. And just the fact that Woodley he's gotten so much negative press over the week about how he's finished and he throws no volume. Maybe he's going to be just a little lower owned than Gooden when people like me are trying to find something different. So maybe they'll play Gooden and maybe they won't play Woodley. So that's the best I can describe it. That's my breakdown. I do think that if you read between the lines, you can see where I'm going here, and a good way for you to go too. But I do think that it's 10 fight card. Probably no one's going to take it down by themselves, but that's fine. I mean, hey, I'll be more than happy to split it with a couple of people if I can get that optimal, which is very, very difficult to do in the first place. That's about it. Good luck, everybody. And I want to give you one more idea. If you want to fade this Menifield fight, just for the hell of it, I mean, he's going to be 75% owned, I would imagine. While I don't have it in me to actually play Sharon, maybe you just fade the whole fight. Like, maybe Menifield wins, but somehow just doesn't get the finish, and just can kind of just wins a boring fight. And then you got to make that up some other way with a better 8,100 guy. Like, maybe Worthy. What's Worthy's price? And even he's 8,600. I mean, you're going to have to get 2 punts home Like if you don't want to play Menafield, for example, you're going to have to play two punts, I think, which is really difficult to do. Anyway, I was hoping to get you a little something different, but that's what I got. Good luck, everybody, and hope you have a good card.